In this video, we're going to look at exponents. So first, let's compare these two problems here. 2, a dot here means multiplication, so 2 times 3. And the second one, notice the difference here. We still have a 2, but first we don't have a dot. And secondly, this 3 is raised. And this is what we call an exponent. So 3 here can be called an exponent or a power. The difference is when we do 2 times 3, literally means 2 threes. So when we have 2 threes, from the multiplication table, we know 2 threes are 6. Oops, so let me move that. But if this 3 is raised, the meaning is different. So we need to remember what it means. So when 3 is raised, it means we multiply 2 3 times. So this is just the definition of the symbol, and a mathematician created the symbol for us, and we need to follow the symbol. And so a lot of students, they confuse these two questions. When they see 2 to the third, they thought they were supposed to do 2 times 3, but you can see the way they were written are different. So 2 times 3, this 3 is not raised, and that means 2 times 3, 2 threes. But if 3 is raised, it doesn't mean 2 times 3. It means we multiply 2, and we do have a name for this 2. We call it the base. So this is the base number. And the 3 means the exponent or power, means the number of times we're going to multiply. So whenever you see exponent, it's actually multiplication. It's an easy way for us to write multiplication. And because otherwise, we have to write, and if we look at the expanded form, it's actually 2 times 2 times 2, 3 times. So you can see 1, 2, 3 times. And when we do this, we still have to work it out one by one. So 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. So although it's an easier way, when we calculate this, we actually have to still expand it into the longer form and to get the answer. So again, 2 to the third, this is just the easy way for us to write 2 times 2 times 2. So if you remember the meaning, so again, exponent is always multiplication. And also the exponent 3, it doesn't appear in the question here. So it's not like 2 times 3 here. We don't really have, you can see in the multiplication, we don't really see a 3. We will repeat this number, base number 2, 3 times, and then multiply. Okay, so now let's look at another 2 examples. What if the base number is negative? And these 2 examples, the difference we see here, one of them have a pair of parentheses. So the minus sign is included in the parentheses. But this case, the minus sign is not in the parentheses. We don't have a pair of parentheses. And so they are different. And if we have a pair of parentheses, again, imagine the parentheses as a box. So in the box, we have not only 2, but also the minus sign. So this little exponent right here, again, the exponent means the number of times. So we have to multiply, following the definition, we're going to multiply the base number, which is the number in the box, negative 2, 2 times. So we're going to take negative 2 and times another copy of negative 2. So we're going to do, you can say 2 times or 2 copies. So we multiply 2 copies of negative 2. And negative 2 times negative 2, from the sign number rules, 2 negatives make a positive. So we're going to get a positive 4 there. The answer will be positive 4. The plus sign can be omitted. But for the next question, because minus sign is not in the parentheses, so it's not like in a box. So they're considered separate. And because if you remember the PEMDAS, we know that multiplication goes before subtraction, because this minus sign you can think of as a subtraction, and exponent we know it's multiplication, because multiply two copies of some number. So we need to multiply 2 first. So here, this minus sign is kind of like separated from that 2 there. So without the pair of parentheses, without being in a box. So they consider to be separate. They're really separated. So we're gonna do 2 to the second, which means multiply 2 copies of 2, so which is 2 times 2 there. And then minus sign, we just bring it down. So we're supposed to do multiplication before subtraction. So 2 times 2 is 4, and then we bring down that minus sign to get negative 4. Okay, so notice that we have 2 different answers. When we have a pair of parentheses, we actually get positive 4. But when we don't have a pair of parentheses, this minus sign, we don't need to do 2 copies of minus sign. We only do 2 copies of the digit 2 because this minus sign is separated from 2. But if it's in the box, not only we have to do 2 copies of 2, but also the minus sign, because the minus sign is and a 2, they're both in the box. So you have to do the 2 copies of the box, and then that's why we have to have 2 minus signs. 2 minus make a positive for multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the answer here. All right, and so we need to pay attention to the difference between the base number with the parentheses, without parentheses. So we can quickly practice these two here. So again, with the pair of parentheses, imagine minus 2 be in a box. So we have to do 3 copies of negative 2. So negative 2, and another negative 2. And to work this out, we first multiply negative 2 and negative 2 to get positive 4, and then multiply another negative 2. So positive times negative gives us a negative. 4 times 2 gives us 8. And the next question, when we don't have a pair of parentheses, we consider them as separate. They're separate. So we're going to only take 3 copies of 2. The minus sign we bring it down. So we're going to keep the minus sign, but we don't need to repeat it 3 times. There's only 1 minus sign. We just bring down 1 minus sign. But when we see 2 to the third, that part, because that exponent 3 means 3 copies of 2. So we're going to write down 3 copies of 2. And between them, we use multiplication, because exponent means multiplication. So we have negative 2 times 2 times 2. So you can go ahead and multiply 2 and 2 and 2 to get 8, and to bring down the minus sign. Or you can think of it as negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, and negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. So either way, that gives us the answer, same answer. And notice this time, when the exponent is 3, whether you have a pair of parentheses or not, it gives us the same answer, negative 8, negative 8. And so sometimes when you have a pair of parentheses, you actually get, without a pair of parentheses, you get different answers, but sometimes you get the same answers. And if you notice, when the exponent is odd number, 3 times, or 5 times, or 7 times, you actually get the same answer. But if they're even number of times, because 2 negatives make a positive, then that will give us a positive answer. Okay, so for example, negative 2 to the 4th, because 4 is an even number, we have to take 4 copies of negative 2 and multiply them. And notice 2 negatives make a positive, and 2 negatives make a positive. And now positive times positive still gives us positive. So if you remember the tip, when the exponent is positive, is even, and the base is negative, we still get a positive answer because 2 negatives make a positive. And positive times positive always gives us positive. So make sure you remember the differences. When you have a pair of parentheses, both the minus sign and the digit are in the box. So you have to double or triple in how many times of this everything in the box. But if you don't have a pair of parentheses, you only gonna double or triple or quadruple the digit, not the minus sign. So now let's look at these examples here. And first, we have exponent here, following in order of operations. Please, we don't have parentheses. Excuse, which means the exponent. So we have to work out exponent first. So we do 2 to the third, which means 2 times 2 times 2. and divide by 5, and that gives us 8 divided by 5. Now, you don't really have to do anything here for division because 8 divided by 5, you could convert that to a decimal, but it's not going to give us whole number. So you can leave it as improper fraction. You don't even have to change it to a mixed number. So next, we're going to look at this fraction. Now, notice we have a pair of parentheses. So we're going to do 3 copies of whatever in the box. Parentheses treated like a box. So we have 2/5. So we're going to do it 3 copies of 2/5. Now, that goes back to the rule of multiplying fractions. So we're going to multiply. So in one of the videos, we already talked about how to multiply fractions, which is multiplying straight across. So we're going to multiply 2 and 2 and 2. That gives us 8. 5 and 5 and 5. That gives us 125. So again, you will have to do it slowly. 5 times 5, that's 25. And you do 25 times another 5. And it gives us 5 times 5 is 25, 2 times 5 is 10, 10 plus 2 is 12. So to get that 125. Now, if you have a minus sign there, remember everything in the parentheses needs to be doubled, tripled. So in this case, 3 times. So we're going to take 3 copies of that. And then we're going to multiply the first. We could determine the sign first, because we know the negative times negative give us a positive, and the positive times another negative gives us a negative. So if you determine the sign first, you don't have to worry about that later. You would just have, so we can go ahead and write down the sign for the answer, which is going to be negative. And then we only have to deal with the numbers, because already, like we said, 2 negative make a positive, positive times another negative gives us minus. So we already know the sign. So now let's forget about all the minuses, just write down all the numbers, which are 2/5, 2/5, 2/5, and which is exactly the same like what we did right here, which gives us negative 8 over 125. But don't forget there's a minus sign in front of it. In this example, we're going to have a mix of all the operations. So notice that between 8 and the parentheses, there's nothing. You can put a dot there to remind yourself it's actually multiplication right here. And then we have an exponent. We have minus 7 and times. If there's nothing between the parentheses and a number, that's multiplication and a minus. So make sure we follow. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So first, we're going to work out what's in the parentheses. We do have parentheses, but inside the parentheses, it's just a number, -3, -4. And there's nothing, no operations to work out. So we don't really have to do anything about what's in the parentheses. So we forget about the parentheses. Now we move on to exponent. And we do have exponents right here. There's exponent. Now, when we work this out, 2 means 2 copies. But we need to remember 2 copies of which number. Now notice in the base, we have a pair of parentheses. Again, imagine this to be a box. So we have, in the box, we have a minus sign. We also have a 3. So we have to do 2 copies of -3. So which gives us, right here, I worked it out right here. So we do 2 copies of -3. Not only 3, but also the minus sign. So we get 2 negatives make a positive. That gives us 9. And again, this 9 comes from that. And I also did the next operation, went ahead, because you could do this in the next step, but because this is separated from the exponent, so if you want, you can go ahead and work this one out here. -7 times -4. And 2 negatives make a positive, so I got a positive, and 7 times 4 is 28. And then I brought down the -9, because we're going to do that in the next step. And notice that we have multiplications and plus and minus. So we have to work out a multiplication before addition and subtraction. So we do 8 times 9, that's 72. And the plus 28 minus 9. So now we just follow the left to right order. So 72 plus 28, lining up. 2 plus 8, 10. Put a little 1 there. 1 plus 7 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. So that gives us 100 minus 9, and which gives us 91.